Consider two men. Both carve stone for a lifetime. Their hands are equally calloused, their brows equally wet with sweat. One dies in obscurity, his tombstone a nameless rock. The other dies an emperor, his name etched into the very cathedral he never touched. This is not a fable of luck, it is a lesson in power. The greatest lie ever told is that the universe rewards your labor. It does not. It rewards your design. This is the hard truth you have been taught to ignore. We live in the shadow of a great and terrible dogma, the religion of hard work. It is preached from every podium, celebrated in every corporate meeting, and ingrained in you since childhood. It is the belief that action, ceaseless and exhausting, is the highest virtue. That movement is progress, that a day is only valuable if it ends in depletion. We have been taught to worship at the altar of effort, to find a moral purity in our own fatigue. This is the mindset of the laborer. Picture him. He stands in a vast, unending field, a tool in his hand, his eyes fixed on the dirt just ahead of him. His entire world is the next furrow to be plowed, the next row to be seeded. He finds a grim satisfaction in the ache of his back, in the burning of his muscles. To him, sweat is a currency, a holy water that sanctifies his toil. He believes with every fiber of his being that if he simply plows with more intensity, with more dedication than any other, the owner of the field will surely recognize his worth. He believes the harvest is a direct and fair reward for his personal suffering. This is the nobility of the fool. The laborer's dedication is his prison. Because his focus is microscopic, he remains blind to the world's true mechanics. He does not see the map of the estate. He does not know where the irrigation channels run, or why some fields lie fallow while others are sown with valuable crops. He does not understand the contracts that determine who truly owns the harvest. He is a master of his immediate task, but a servant to a system he cannot comprehend. He confuses his own motion with the direction of the world. He is the employee who stays late not to finish a critical project, but to be the last one seen in the office, believing his visibility is a substitute for his value. He is the entrepreneur who boasts of sleeping 4 hours a night, wearing his exhaustion as a badge of honor, all while his enterprise drifts aimlessly, mistaking frantic activity for strategic velocity. This cult of work is a potent moral anesthetic. It numbs the fear of insignificance. As long as you are busy, as long as you are working hard, you feel virtuous, you feel you are doing what is right. But this feeling is a strategic trap. It makes you predictable. It makes you manageable. It turns you into a reliable, tireless resource for the designs of other men. The laborer, in his noble, sweating sincerity, does not realize the most brutal truth of all. His hard work is not building his own future. It is merely tilling the soil for the man who designed the entire estate. He is an essential, replaceable part of a machine he did not create and will never control. His effort, the very thing he worships, is the raw material for another's empire. Now, turn your gaze from the field to the tower that overlooks it. There, behind the glass, stands the architect. He holds no tool. His hands are clean. He is not idle, but his labor is of a different and terrifying quality. His work is invisible to the laborer below. It is the silent work of thought, of observation, of design. The architect understands that the fate of the entire estate was decided not in the field, but on the parchment before the first stone was ever laid. He understands that one correct line on a blueprint is worth 1,000 years of a laborer's toil. This is the Machiavellian schism. It is the recognition that results are not born from effort, but from structure. As the prince advises, the first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. This is not a simple instruction to choose good advisors. It is a profound revelation about the nature of power. The true measure of intelligence is not what you can do yourself, but what you can design a system to do for you. The architect's genius is not in his capacity for work, but in his understanding of the physics of power, ambition, and human nature. He looks down at the field and sees not just men, but forces. He sees the laborer's deep-seated need for purpose, his desire for praise, his belief in the virtue of work. And he does not exploit these forces with a whip. That is the crude method of a tyrant. Instead, he harnesses them with a vision. He does not command men to build a wall. He designs a cathedral so magnificent, an idea so compelling, that men will beg for the privilege of carrying the stones. He creates a system where their ambition, their sweat and their dedication all flow, as if by gravity, toward the realization of his singular design. The laborer's work is finite. His harvest is consumed, and the next year he must begin again, his progress reset to zero. The architect's work is foundational. He creates a structure, a company, an institution, a legal code, a philosophy, that not only endures but grows in power long after he has stepped away. It generates results while he sleeps. It consolidates his power while he observes. This is the fundamental difference. The laborer works in the system. The architect is the system. He has transcended the need to trade his time and energy for survival. He has instead invested his mind in the creation of an engine that runs on the predictable, earnest, and limitless energy of the laborers. He has mastered the cruel economy of results, where 1 hour of perfect, ruthless design outweighs a lifetime of misguided effort. For the laborer measures his life in sweat, while the architect measures it in legacies. Effort is a tax paid by those who do not understand the design. Comment: design the power. If you refuse to be just another brick in another man's wall, and subscribe to learn how to build your own empire. So you have chosen the tower over the field. You have accepted the foundational truth that a blueprint is more powerful than 1,000 swinging hammers, but a design on parchment is mere fantasy. To raise an empire from it, to give it form in stone and steel, the architect must master the 2 pillars of strategic domain. These are not principles for the faint of heart. They are the brutal mechanics of creation, and the first is this: you must learn to command armies you do not pay for with your own blood. Machiavelli warns any aspiring prince with chilling clarity: mercenary and auxiliary troops are useless and dangerous. The common reader believes he is speaking only of soldiers. The architect knows he is speaking of a far more precious resource: your life force. Your personal effort, your hours, your attention, your energy is the most expensive and unreliable mercenary army in the world. Every moment you spend on a task that another could do, you are paying for that mercenary with the only currency you can never reclaim: your time. The laborer is the profligate king who insists on fighting his own battles on the front lines. He is proud of the mud on his boots and the blood on his sword, yet with every skirmish he wins, his kingdom, his very life, shrinks. He spends his days in a frenzy of action, believing he is a paragon of productivity. In reality, he is simply bleeding out, squandering his sovereign power on trivialities. He answers every email, attends every meeting, adjusts every minor detail, all while his grander strategy lies neglected. His kingdom has no ruler, only a very busy and very foolish soldier. The architect, by contrast, understands that true power is not the ability to do the work, but the ability to command the work of others. He looks upon the world and does not see a series of tasks to be completed. He sees an ocean of dormant ambition. He knows that every man is a vessel of desire, for recognition, for purpose, for wealth, for a cause to serve. The laborer sees these desires in others as competition. The architect sees them as his inexhaustible energy source. He does not try to generate the power himself. That is the fool's game. Instead, he builds the aqueduct. He creates a system, a company, a mission, a compelling vision, so perfectly designed that the ambitions of others naturally flow into it, turning the turbines of his grand machine. This is the deeper meaning behind Machiavelli's advice to arm one's own subjects. The architect arms his people by giving their work meaning within his larger structure. He identifies the talented, the driven, the hungry, and he does not merely hire them as mercenaries. He makes them citizens of his cause. He gives them a banner to march under, a wall to defend, a victory to share. He learns their motivations not to exploit them, but to align their self-interest with his own. The man who desires wealth is put in charge of generating revenue. The woman who craves recognition is given a stage to demonstrate her brilliance. He transmutes their personal ambition into fuel for his empire, and in doing so, he creates a force more loyal, more innovative, and more powerful than any army he could ever hire. They do not work for him because they are paid. They work for him because his vision has become the vessel for their own destiny. He is no longer just a man. He is a cause. His true labor is not execution, but perception. His genius lies in identifying the right talent, framing the right mission, and then stepping back as 1,000 ambitious hands build his cathedral, believing it to be their own. But to command such a legion, whether of men or of projects, requires a second, more severe discipline. It is the mastery of what Machiavelli called cruelties well used. For the edifice of power to stand, the architect must be willing to wield the scalpel, not with malice, but with a terrifying and absolute clarity. The greatest cruelty in any endeavor is not a swift, decisive action, but the slow, agonizing poison of indecision. The laborer is a sentimentalist. His identity is intertwined with his effort. He will cling to a failing project, a flawed idea, or an incompetent subordinate, because he has invested his sweat into them. To abandon them would be to admit his own labor was in vain, and so he pours good energy after bad, trying to salvage the unsalvageable. He is the farmer who, out of love for a single dying plant, allows a blight to spread and consume the entire field. His compassion is a form of vanity, and its result is universal failure. The architect feels no such sentiment. His loyalty is not to the individual bricks, but to the integrity of the blueprint. He is a physician to his own creation, and he understands that the health of the whole sometimes requires the amputation of a part. This is the cruelty of efficiency. It is the cold, dispassionate decision to demolish a foundation that was laid incorrectly, even if it took months to build. It is the immediate removal of a team member whose negativity is poisoning the group, regardless of their past contributions. It is the ruthless abandonment of a once promising strategy the moment data proves it obsolete. These actions appear harsh. They cause short-term pain, but they are acts of profound responsibility. They are the well-used cruelties that prevent a small weakness from becoming a catastrophic, systemic collapse. They cauterize the wound before gangrene can set in. The true malice lies in hesitation. The leader who delays a difficult firing forces the entire team to suffer the consequences of mediocrity. The entrepreneur who refuses to abandon a failing product drives his entire company into bankruptcy. This is the badly used cruelty of the idealist, a prolonged bleeding agony inflicted upon everyone out of a refusal to inflict a single necessary pain. These two pillars are the foundations of your tower. You must learn to leverage the ambitions of the many, creating a force that works for you. And you must possess the ruthless clarity to direct that force only toward what is productive, cutting away all that is weak, sentimental, and inefficient. Without the first, you are a slave to your own effort. Without the second, you are the captain of a ship you dare not steer. Together, they transform you from a builder into a sovereign of your domain. The foundations are now laid. You understand the necessity of leveraging external ambition and the cold calculus of efficiency. But these are merely tools, and tools are useless, even dangerous, in the hands of a man who has not first mastered himself. The most formidable fortress the architect must design is not of stone, but of the mind. The most difficult war he will ever wage is not against a rival, but against the ghost that lives within him, the ghost of the laborer. This is the third and most crucial stage of your ascension, the internal purification and the construction of the public stage. You must win the war within before you can command the world without. This internal enemy is a subtle and relentless saboteur. It is the voice of your social programming, the echo of every teacher, parent, and manager who ever told you that your worth is measured by your visible activity. It is the inner censor that whispers guilt into your moments of stillness, that equates contemplation with idleness, that brands strategic patience as unforgivable sloth. It is the phantom ache of a muscle that has not been worked, the restless anxiety of a mind that is not occupied with a trivial task. The laborer believes that to think is to not be doing. The architect must understand that to think is the only doing that truly matters. This internal victory is a quiet and lonely one. It is an act of philosophical regicide. You must kill the king of convention that rules your mind. You must learn to find solace and strength in the silent crucible of thought, while the world outside buzzes in a meaningless frenzy. Picture the command tent on the eve of a great battle. The foot soldiers are busy, sharpening blades, checking armor, their nervous energy a frantic hum. They are working. But in the tent, the general is still. He sits before a map, a single candle burning. His stillness is not inaction. It is the most potent form of action imaginable. In his silence, armies are repositioned, feints are devised. The entire arc of the coming day is being bent to his will. His 1 hour of focused, uninterrupted design is worth more than the chaotic energy of 10,000 men. You must become that general. You must build your own command tent within your mind, a sanctuary from the tyranny of the urgent. You must ruthlessly defend this space from the incursions of petty tasks, endless notifications, and the demands of those who mistake busyness for importance. You must assassinate the guilt that arises from saying no. You must learn to sit with a problem, to observe its contours, to let its solution emerge from deep consideration, rather than attacking it with the brute force of immediate, thoughtless effort. This is the apotheosis of the strategic mind, to achieve a state of perfect comfort in what appears to be idleness, knowing that within this stillness, empires are being forged. It is the hardest work of all, for it has no audience, no applause, and its only measure is the crushing weight of the results that will eventually follow. Once this inner sanctum of clarity has been fortified, the architect must turn his attention to the world outside, for he cannot remain in the tower forever. His power depends on the willing, even enthusiastic labor of others, and men do not follow an abstract intellect. They follow a leader they can see, a symbol they can understand. Therefore, the architect must become a performer. He must engage in the great and necessary theater of construction. His second great task is to build a public facade, a carefully curated persona that inspires loyalty, projects strength, and completely masks the true cold nature of his intellectual work. He must become the master builder. The master builder does not hide from his people, but his appearances are not random. They are meticulously staged. He does not walk the construction site daily, for familiarity breeds contempt. Instead, he appears at moments of symbolic importance, when a great foundation is laid, when a difficult obstacle is overcome, when a spire is raised to the sky. He arrives not as a distant intellectual, but as the chief patron of the effort. He rolls up his sleeves, a symbolic gesture, nothing more. He looks at the blueprints with the foreman, his brow furrowed in shared concentration. He learns the names of key workers, inquiring about their families, creating a potent illusion of personal connection. These are not acts of friendship. They are calculated investments in perception. He must, above all, master their language. In his mind, he speaks the tongue of systems, leverage, and efficiency. In public, he speaks the gospel of the laborer. He uses their sacred words: dedication, sacrifice, long nights, team effort, blood, sweat, and tears. He tells stories, often embellished, of his own early days as a laborer, forging a myth of a shared origin. He creates a narrative that says, "I am one of you. I understand your toil because I have lived it." This is the most potent lie of all, because it is the one people most desperately want to believe. They cannot comprehend the vast, cold emptiness of pure strategic thought, but they can understand and admire the story of a man who rose from the mud through sheer will. He gives them that story. As Machiavelli knew, men in general judge more by the eyes than by the hands. For everyone can see what you appear to be, few can touch what you are. The master builder ensures that what they see is a reflection of their own highest virtues. He publicly praises the hard work of others, distributing honor as a currency to motivate and in debt. He takes personal credit for the vision, but distributes public credit for the execution. In doing so, he makes the workers feel seen, valued, and essential, binding them ever tighter to the project. The facade is his armor. It protects him from the envy and resentment that his true, effortless power would inevitably generate. It allows him to operate with ruthless, dispassionate logic in private, while appearing compassionate, engaged, and hard-working in public. He builds a cult of personality, not around his genius, which would isolate him, but around a shared, mythical struggle. His true work remains hidden in the tower of his mind, while his phantom, the hard-working master builder, walks among the people, a god disguised as a king disguised as a common man. You have won the war within your own mind. You have constructed the perfect public theatre. You have learned the difference between the toil of the servant and the design of the sovereign. Now, before we reveal how the final stone is laid, the one that solidifies a legacy in time, ensure you are subscribed, for true immortality is reserved for those who build, not for those who merely labor. The final act, the architect's masterstroke, is never what the laborer expects. He anticipates a final monumental effort, a last great burst of work, a crescendo of sweat and noise that marks the project's completion. He is, as always, wrong. The masterstroke is not an act of force. It is an act of sublime, devastating precision. It is the moment of the keystone. For years, the architect has designed the arch. Thousands of stones, projects, people, resources have been meticulously cut and positioned. The entire structure is held up by a clumsy and enormous wooden scaffolding of constant effort, of management, of his own draining attention. The laborers see this scaffolding and believe it is the structure itself. They believe the strength comes from the sheer volume of wood and the sweat of the men holding it in place. Then the moment arrives. It is a moment of supreme virtù, seizing an opportunity granted by Fortuna. The architect, after years of silent planning, steps forward. He does not swing a hammer or lift a heavy beam. He directs the placement of a single, small, perfectly shaped stone at the apex of the arch. The keystone. The moment it slides into place, a miracle of physics occurs. The scaffolding, which a moment before seemed essential, becomes utterly redundant. The forces of gravity, which had been the enemy constantly trying to pull the structure down, are suddenly transmuted into its greatest ally. Each stone now presses against the other, their mutual stress locking them into a state of unbreakable unity, channeling all their weight down into the foundations. The arch now supports itself. The master stroke was not the lifting of the 1,000 stones. It was the placement of the one stone that made the other 999 perfect. This is the moment of execution. It is the launch of the automated system that renders 100 manual jobs obsolete. It is the signing of the one law that restructures an entire industry. It is the creation of the brand so powerful that it no longer needs to advertise but merely exist. It is here that we see the ultimate application of Machiavelli's most misunderstood advice. Injuries must be inflicted all at once, so that, being tasted less, they offend less. Benefits ought to be granted little by little, so that they may be better enjoyed. The injury is the sudden, shocking removal of the scaffolding. It is the moment the old way of doing things, the world of hard work, of constant intervention, of the laborer's reality, is rendered obsolete. It is a swift, system-wide shock. It is the death of a paradigm. The benefits, in turn, are the results that the new, self-sustaining structure now produces, endlessly and effortlessly. The arch provides shelter day after day. The automated system generates revenue hour after hour. The new law provides order year after year. The benefit is not a single event. It is a permanent condition of advantage. The master stroke is this transition, from a state of constant effort to a state of perpetual return. With the keystone in place, the architect's role undergoes a final, profound transformation. His work is done, but his power has just begun. This is the consolidation of the new order. The laborer, if he ever completes his field, leaves behind only tired earth, which must be toiled again next season. The architect leaves behind a cathedral, and a cathedral does more than simply exist. It redefines the entire landscape. It becomes the new center of gravity. Roads are rerouted to lead to its doors. Markets spring up in its shadow. An entire culture reshapes itself around its presence. The architect's creation, his company, his system, his philosophy, does the same. It is no longer just an alternative. It becomes the new standard, the new common sense. His competitors are not simply beaten, they are made irrelevant. They are the builders of wooden huts now living in the shadow of a granite fortress. Their methods of hard work seem antiquated, inefficient, almost pathetic, in comparison to the elegant, permanent results of his design. His power is no longer active. He does not need to issue commands, to motivate, to manage. The structure does it for him. The system he built now generates the results, enforces the rules, and perpetuates his will. He has embedded his intelligence into the very fabric of his domain. He has transcended the need for personal action and has become a law of physics within his own creation. This is the ultimate state of power, not to be the strongest man in the room, but to have designed the room in such a way that all its occupants willingly and naturally act in accordance with your original intent. His legacy is not a memory of his efforts. It is the undeniable, enduring reality of the world he has made. So we arrive at the final, inescapable conclusion. The universe does not reward the ant for its tireless scurrying, but the spider for the perfection of its web. To ignore the lie of hard work is not an invitation to sloth, but a call to a higher, more ruthless form of labor. It is the labor of the mind, the will and the vision. It is the courage to remain still when all others are in motion, to think when all others are doing. The men who alter the world are not those who carry the heaviest stones, but those who understand the geometry of stress and the architecture of human desire. The great achievements of history were not the result of accumulated sweat, but the consequence of a singular brilliant design flawlessly executed. Supreme power is found not in the calloused hands of the worker, but in the quiet mind that can envision an empire, and in the cold will that dares to build it.